If you love heartwarming stories that defy expectations, then you're in for something truly special. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs a little inspiration today, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will leave you speechless. Because this is one moment that changed everything. Nathaniel Kensington III wasn't a man easily surprised. A self-made millionaire, he built his empire on discipline, logic, and an unshakable sense of control. Everything in his world had a place. His business, his towering estate, his pristine reputation in high society, and most importantly, his son, Oliver. At 10 years old, Oliver was meant to inherit the same unwavering discipline that had made the Kensington name synonymous with wealth and power. But Nathaniel had been noticing something different about Oliver lately. A light in his son's eyes that flickered when he thought no one was looking. A secret smile he carried, one that seemed to have nothing to do with the tutors his father hired, the etiquette lessons drilled into him, or the carefully structured future laid out before him. It was a curiosity that tugged at Nathaniel's sharp mind. And so, one evening, when he arrived home earlier than expected, he decided to follow the sound of his son's laughter, something he rarely heard in this house. The mansion was quiet, the polished floors gleaming beneath the glow of a grand chandelier. The staff knew better than to disrupt his arrival with unnecessary chatter. Yet, as Nathaniel moved through the halls, he heard something unusual. Music, rhythmic, vibrant, and filled with life. Not the classical compositions played during Oliver's lessons, but something different. A beat that seemed to pulse with joy itself. Frowning, Nathaniel followed the sound, his expensive Italian loafers making no noise against the marble. And then he saw it. In the grand living room, where only the most prestigious guests were entertained, stood his son. His heir, moving in a way that had nothing to do with the stiff, formal waltzes he'd been taught. His small body swayed, twisted, and jumped with pure exhilaration. And right beside him, guiding his every step with fluid grace, was her, Amara, the maid. Nathaniel's pulse tightened. She was a quiet presence in his home, always carrying herself with dignity, despite her station. Her dark skin contrasted against the cream-colored uniform she wore, her curly hair tucked neatly beneath a headscarf. She was efficient, unseen unless needed, just the way Nathaniel liked it. But here she was, in the very center of his home, teaching his son to move in a way that broke every rule he had ever set. She hadn't seen him yet. Neither had Oliver. The boy's laughter rang out as Amara clapped in encouragement. "That's it. Feel the beat. Don't fight it." Her voice was warm, full of life in a way Nathaniel couldn't ignore. Oliver beamed up at her, his golden hair bouncing with each movement. "Like this?" he asked eagerly, attempting a spin. Nathaniel took a step forward, and the room shifted. The moment Amara caught sight of him, her entire body went still. The joy drained from her face as if she had been caught committing an unforgivable sin. Oliver followed her gaze and immediately froze. The music played on, ignorant of the sudden tension that had overtaken the room. Nathaniel's eyes locked onto Amara's. "What?" he said, his voice low, measured, dangerous. "Is going on here?" Oliver's chest rose and fell quickly, still catching his breath. "Dad, Nathaniel lifted a hand, silencing his son with nothing more than a glance. His gaze never left Amara. The woman straightened her spine, chin lifting slightly in defiance, though he could see the flicker of apprehension in her deep brown eyes. "I was just—" she hesitated, then squared her shoulders. "I was teaching him to dance." The audacity. Nathaniel took slow, deliberate steps into the room, his presence swallowing the space. "Without permission," he stated coldly. "I didn't think I needed permission," Amara replied evenly. Oliver's small voice cut through the tension. "Dad, please don't be mad. She was just helping me. I asked her to." Nathaniel inhaled sharply, his jaw tightening. "Go to your room, Oliver." The boy hesitated, glancing at Amara. She gave him a small nod, and with a reluctant sigh, he turned and disappeared down the hall. Now it was just the two of them. Nathaniel studied the woman before him, trying to reconcile the image of the silent maid who never spoke out of turn with the one who had just defied him in his own home. "Explain," he demanded. Amara met his gaze without flinching. "Oliver saw me dancing once while I was cleaning," she admitted. "He wanted to learn. He begged me, and I didn't see the harm in it." Nathaniel narrowed his eyes. "Didn't see the harm?" His voice was sharp enough to cut. "Do you have any idea how dangerous it is to fill his head with this?" He gestured at the still-playing music. "His life is not meant for frivolous distractions. He has responsibilities, a future that does not include—" He cut himself off before the words "someone like you" could slip out. Amara's lips pressed together, but she held her ground. "He's just a boy," she said softly. "A boy who wanted to dance." Nathaniel took a slow breath, something unreadable flickering across his features. Then, without another word, he reached over and switched off the music. Silence fell heavy between them. "You're fired." The words landed like a hammer. For the first time, Amara's composure cracked. Her dark lashes fluttered in disbelief. "What?" "I don't repeat myself," Nathaniel said coldly. "Pack your things. You're leaving tonight." Her hands curled into fists at her sides, but she nodded stiffly. Without another word, she turned on her heel and walked away. Nathaniel watched her go, a strange tightness forming in his chest. He ignored it. This was the right thing, wasn't it? If you thought that was shocking, you haven't seen anything yet. What happened next changed everything. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. Nathaniel Kensington III had made his decision. Amara was gone. It was the right thing, wasn't it? Then why, as he sat in his office late that night, staring at the untouched glass of bourbon on his desk, did he feel unsettled? The house was quiet now. Too quiet. Oliver hadn't spoken to him since Amara left. The boy barely touched his dinner, retreating to his room without a word. That wasn't like him. Nathaniel was used to order, control. But now something felt off. For the first time in years, he didn't feel in control of his own home. He ran a hand through his dark, neatly combed hair, exhaling slowly. This was ridiculous. He had made the right call. Dancing wasn't a priority. It was a distraction, a waste of time. And yet, the image of Oliver's glowing face as he moved to the beat, his laughter ringing through the halls, wouldn't leave Nathaniel's mind. He tried to shake it off. He had done what any responsible father would do. Oliver needed discipline, focus. He wasn't meant to dance. But what if that joy was something Oliver needed? Nathaniel's fingers tapped against the desk, his sharp mind battling against something deeper, something he wasn't ready to name. Before he could dwell on it any longer, a soft knock at his office door interrupted his thoughts. "Sir." The butler, James, stepped inside, his usual composed expression slightly hesitant. "Master Oliver refuses to sleep." Nathaniel frowned. "Refuses?" James hesitated. "He's been crying, sir." That hit Nathaniel harder than he expected. Oliver never cried. Not over punishments. Not over lost privileges. The boy was tough just as he had raised him to be. But now, without another word, Nathaniel rose from his chair and strode down the hall, his long legs carrying him toward Oliver's room. He didn't knock. He simply opened the door, expecting to find his son curled up in bed, perhaps sniffling. What he saw instead made him stop cold. Oliver wasn't in bed. He was on the floor, clutching a tablet, watching something intently. The glow of the screen illuminated his tear-streaked face. But it wasn't just any video. It was Amara. A shaky, grainy video, likely recorded on a cheap phone, showed her dancing in what looked like a small studio, her movements fluid, effortless, full of life, the same way she had moved when she was teaching Oliver. His son sniffled, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. He hadn't noticed his father yet. Nathaniel stepped forward, his voice firm but quieter than usual. "Oliver." Oliver jumped, quickly turning off the tablet and swiping at his eyes. I wasn't." Nathaniel exhaled. Don't lie to me. Oliver bit his lip. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, with a shaky breath, he whispered, She was my friend. Nathaniel stilled. She listened to me? Oliver continued, his voice trembling. She made me feel like I was good at something. Nathaniel's throat tightened, but he masked it. You are good at things, Oliver. That's why you have tutors, It's not the same. Oliver's small fists clenched. You make me learn things that you think are important. But dancing makes me happy. And now she's gone. Silence filled the room. Nathaniel had no response to that. Oliver's lip trembled, but he lifted his chin in defiance, so much like his father. You can take away my music. You can fire Amara. But you can't stop me from dancing. Ever. Nathaniel's chest felt tight, something unfamiliar clawing at the edges of his carefully controlled heart. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the room, shutting the door behind him. But instead of going back to his office, he grabbed his keys. And for the first time in a long time, Nathaniel Kensington III did something completely unexpected. He went to find Amara. If you thought Nathaniel firing Amara was the end of the story, you were wrong. What happened next was something no one, not even Nathaniel himself, could have expected. If you're as hooked as we are, make sure to like, share, and subscribe because this is where everything changes. Nathaniel Kensington III was not a man who second-guessed his decisions. He made choices and the world adjusted accordingly. That was the way of power, the way of success. And yet, here he was at nearly midnight, driving through a part of town he had never stepped foot in before. The streets were nothing like his pristine, gated neighborhood. They were alive with noise. Music spilling from small bars, laughter ringing through the streets, people moving with an energy that didn't exist in his perfectly controlled world. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and for some reason, it made his pulse quicken. He parked his sleek black car outside a modest apartment complex and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. What was he even doing here? But then he thought of Oliver, his son's tear-streaked face, the way his voice had cracked when he said, She was my friend. Nathaniel exhaled sharply. That was why he was here. Not because of some misplaced guilt, but because his son had looked at him like he was a stranger. And that was something Nathaniel couldn't ignore. He stepped out of the car, his expensive shoes clicking against the pavement. The air smelled different here, of street food, of city life. It was nothing like the sterile, perfectly manicured world he was used to. Finding Amara's apartment was easy. Her address was still in the employee records. He reached her door and knocked. Nothing. He knocked again, harder this time. A moment later, the door cracked open just slightly, the chain lock still in place. Amara's deep brown eyes met his through the small gap, shock flashing across her face. Nathaniel? Her voice was hushed, like she wasn't sure if she was dreaming. He cleared his throat, straightening his posture. We need to talk. She blinked. Then, slowly, she closed the door, just for a second, before unlatching the chain and opening it fully. She was in an oversized t-shirt and leggings, her hair now free from the strict headscarf she wore at his home. Here, in her own space, she looked different, more real. Nathaniel didn't step inside. He simply looked at her, taking in the slight wariness in her stance, the way her arms crossed over her chest. Why are you here? She asked quietly. He exhaled, the words tasting unfamiliar in his mouth. Oliver is upset. Her eyes softened, just for a moment. I figured. He's been watching videos of you dancing. He studied her carefully. Why didn't you tell me you were a professional? She let out a small, humorless laugh. Because I wasn't hired to dance, Nathaniel. I was hired to clean your floors. Something about the way she said it made his stomach tighten. I didn't know, he admitted. No, you didn't. There was no malice in her tone, just truth. A beat of silence passed between them. Then, Nathaniel said something that surprised even himself. I need you to come back. Amara's brows shot up. Excuse me? For Oliver, he clarified quickly, though he wasn't sure if that was the only reason anymore. He won't talk to me. He won't sleep. You're the only one who seems to understand him. Amara studied him, her deep brown eyes searching his face for something. Then she shook her head. I can't do that. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being told no. Why not? Because I won't go back to being just the maid in your house. You fired me. Remember? Her voice was steady, but there was a quiet fire beneath it. I won't work for someone who only sees me as disposable. Nathaniel had no response to that. She sighed. Look, I care about Oliver, but I have my own dreams, my own life. I was saving money to open my own dance studio before I started working for you. That's still my goal. For the first time, Nathaniel saw her not as an employee, but as a person. Someone who had aspirations, who had value beyond the role she played in his perfectly ordered world. He exhaled. What if I could help? Amara blinked, clearly thrown off by his words. Help how? Nathaniel hesitated. Then, in a decision that shocked even him, he said, I'll fund your studio. She stared at him. You what? I'll pay for it, he repeated, his voice firm. I'll cover the costs. In exchange, you teach Oliver. Officially. Amara's lips parted slightly, like she was waiting for the catch. Nathaniel continued, no more cleaning. No more being the maid. You'll be his dance instructor. On your terms. For a long time, she just looked at him. And then, finally, she spoke. Why are you really doing this? Nathaniel didn't have an answer. Or maybe he did. Maybe it was because Oliver had found something real, something joyful, and Nathaniel had tried to snuff it out. Maybe it was because Amara had shown him something about his own son that he had never seen before. Or maybe, just maybe, it was because something inside him was changing. I just want to do the right thing, he said finally. Amara searched his face for a long time. Then, after what felt like forever, she let out a slow breath. Okay, she said softly. I'll do it. Nathaniel didn't know why, but the moment she said those words, he felt something in his chest loosen, something he hadn't even realized was there. If you thought Nathaniel offering to fund Amara's dance studio was the biggest twist, you're wrong. What happened next changed everything for Oliver, for Amara, and for Nathaniel himself. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. The deal was set. Amara would return, but not as a maid. She would be Oliver's official dance instructor, and in return, Nathaniel would help her open her dream studio. It was simple, or at least it should have been. But as soon as Amara stepped back into the Kensington estate, it became clear that nothing would be simple. The staff whispered. The butler, James, raised an eyebrow. Even Oliver, when he saw her, froze for a moment, his face a mix of disbelief and cautious hope. You're back? He asked, his voice small, like he didn't quite trust it. Amara knelt to his level, offering a warm smile. Yeah, kid. I'm back. Oliver's face lit up. Without hesitation, he threw his arms around her, hugging her so tightly that Amara let out a small laugh. Whoa there, champ. Nathaniel watched the exchange, something stirring inside him. He had seen his son shake hands with business associates, politely nod at tutors and instructors. But this was different. This was real. Oliver pulled back, his blue eyes gleaming with excitement. Wait, does this mean we can still dance? Amara glanced at Nathaniel. This was his moment. Nathaniel cleared his throat. Yes, but under one condition. Oliver tensed, ready for another rule, another restriction. You have to take it seriously, Nathaniel said. If you want to dance, then you need to train. You treat it like any other skill. Discipline. Hard work. No quitting. Oliver blinked, stunned for a moment. Then slowly he grinned. Deal. And just like that, Amara's lessons began. At first, it was just the two of them in the large, empty dance room, one of many unused spaces in the Kensington estate. Amara worked Oliver hard, pushing him through warm-ups, conditioning, technique drills. Nathaniel had expected his son to lose interest after a few days. But he didn't. Oliver showed up every single morning, eager, determined. He fell. He stumbled, but he kept going. And Nathaniel? He found himself watching, more often than he wanted to admit. It started with glances, walking past the room and catching a glimpse of Oliver nailing a step, of Amara clapping in encouragement. Then he started standing at the back of the room, arms crossed, pretending he wasn't invested. Until one evening when Amara caught him watching. "You can come in, you know," she said, raising an eyebrow. Nathaniel scoffed. "I'm just making sure my investment is worth it." Amara smirked. "Right? Sure." She turned back to Oliver. "All right, let's show your dad what you've got." Oliver nodded eagerly, moving into position. And then, to Nathaniel's complete shock, his son began to dance. Not just moving, not just stepping to a beat, but truly dancing. It was incredible, the way Oliver flowed with the rhythm, his movements sharp yet smooth. His confidence had grown, his passion was visible, and Nathaniel felt something in his chest tighten. Because for the first time he realized something. Oliver wasn't just dancing, he was happy. The realization hit Nathaniel harder than he expected. And then, Amara turned to him with a challenge in her eyes. "You know, for someone who's so interested in investment returns," she said, smirking, "you sure spend a lot of time just standing there." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. "What's your point?" Amara crossed her arms. "My point, Mr. Kensington, is that you should stop watching and start doing." Oliver gasped. "Yes, Dad, you should try it." Nathaniel let out a short laugh. "Absolutely not." "Oh, come on," Amara teased. "What are you afraid of?" "I don't dance," Nathaniel said firmly. Amara's smirk widened. Neither did Oliver. But look at him now. Nathaniel hesitated. He never hesitated. But something about the way Amara looked at him, about the way Oliver's eyes sparkled with excitement, made him pause. And before he could stop himself, he said something he never expected. "Fine." Amara blinked. "Wait, seriously?" Nathaniel rolled his shoulders. "I don't make weak deals. If I expect Oliver to take this seriously, I should at least understand what it takes." Oliver cheered. "This is gonna be awesome." And that was how, for the first time in his life, Nathaniel Kensington III stepped onto a dance floor. He expected to hate it. But what happened next? That shocked him. If you thought Nathaniel Kensington III would back out of his promise, you don't know just how far this story is about to go. Because what happens next will shock you, and it will prove that sometimes the most unexpected moments change us forever. Like, share, and subscribe because this is the ending you didn't see coming. Nathaniel stood in the middle of the dance floor, arms stiff, posture tense. Amara circled him like a predator sizing up its prey. She tapped her chin, eyes flicking up and down. "All right, Mr. Kensington, let's see what we're working with." Oliver grinned from the sidelines, practically vibrating with excitement. "This is gonna be amazing." Nathaniel scoffed. "This is going to be a disaster." Amara ignored him. "Start with something simple. Step to the left, then step to the right." Nathaniel exhaled sharply. Fine. If he was going to do this, he would do it. He mimicked Amara's movements, stepping once to the left, once to the right. She nodded. "Okay, now, add a little bounce." He frowned. "A what?" "A bounce. Loosen up. Feel the music." Nathaniel clenched his jaw. Loosen up? Feel the music? He was a man of control, of precision. He didn't just feel things, he mastered them. But Oliver was watching. And something about the way his son looked at him, so hopeful, so proud, made Nathaniel do something he never did. He let go. For the first time in his life, he stopped thinking and just moved. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't smooth. But it was real. And Amara saw it. She smiled. Now we're getting somewhere. Started small. Just simple steps, basic rhythm. But then Amara pushed him further. Turn here. Clap there. A groove he never thought he had. And before Nathaniel realized it, he was dancing. Not well. Not smoothly. But trying. And Oliver was laughing. Not mocking, not teasing, but joyful. It was the kind of laughter Nathaniel hadn't heard from his son in years. Something in his chest cracked open. And that's when it hit him. This wasn't just about dancing. It was about connection. For the first time, Nathaniel wasn't leading a boardroom. He wasn't negotiating a deal. He wasn't molding Oliver into some image of success he had constructed in his head. He was being with him, and it felt, for the first time in a long, long time, right? The lesson ended with Oliver high-fiving Amara and hugging his father, something he rarely did. Nathaniel, still catching his breath, didn't even hesitate before returning the embrace. And Amara? She just watched, because she had seen a lot of things in her life. But watching a man like Nathaniel Kensington III let himself feel something real, that was something else entirely. 1 year later, the studio was packed. Parents sat in rows of chairs, cameras ready, waiting for the performance to begin. The name Kensington and Brooks Dance Academy hung on the banner above the stage. Backstage, Oliver adjusted his outfit, his nerves obvious. Amara knelt in front of him. "You ready, champ?" Oliver swallowed. "What if I mess up?" Amara smiled. "Then you mess up, and you keep going." Oliver nodded, but his hands still trembled. And then, a deep voice cut through the moment. "If you fall," Nathaniel said, stepping forward, "you get back up." Oliver looked up at his father, eyes wide. Nathaniel was there, in the wings, watching, supporting. It had been a year since he first stepped onto a dance floor, since he let Amara teach him something money never could. And tonight was proof that he had changed. The lights dimmed. The music started. Oliver stepped onto the stage. Nathaniel held his breath. And then his son danced. The end. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because sometimes the most unexpected moments change everything.